Jay, it's getting close to that magical time of the year where we, you and I, and those that would pay the most attention to this show probably spend more money than they would at Christmas time.
Yep. I think so.
Yeah. So it's almost September, and the rumors and the analysis of past events, and I say that because there was this rumor yesterday that the event invite leaked, but I think that's probably not true because I can't imagine that leaking. But
Right.
rumors and analysis seem to suggest September 10th as a possibility for the Apple event. So I want to play out this timeline, and I need you to hold your comments because I'll give you time here in a minute to talk about this. But I need you to start thinking about this timeline. So if the event is on the 10th, pre-orders are usually that Friday, so the 13th, and
Right.
day one delivery would be on the 20th. Now, for those of you that are just joining us, you should know that the Benjamin family is never around on iPhone launch day because they're on a boat somewhere. So maybe, just maybe, someone in your family could get an iPhone on day one, which is like the first time in forever. So think about that. I don't want you to answer that quite yet. Okay. I want you to just think about it. And when we get into the show, I have a spot where I want you to talk us through that. So,
okay.
All right. Now, regardless of when they hold the event, it's probably going to focus on the iPhone, right? And Apple Intelligence. I mean, these are all the really cool Apple Intelligence features coming to iPhone later. Because we know, at least right now, none of the intelligence features are in the betas unless you get on that 18.1 developer beta. So, but there are other things, right?
Yeah.
And maybe we'll get some
Two things.
surprises. There are a few other things that go on. Maybe we'll get some surprises, but the rumor mill is pretty active right now. So here's what I want to do today. Let's follow up on our post show from last week, which was what we plan to do from an iPhone purchase standpoint. We'll see if anything's changed, and we'll get Jason to tell us if that timeline works for the Benjamin household or whether it's going to be another one of those years where he has to go on a cruise first and then come back and deal with stuff. So we'll get him to answer that. And then let's talk about rumors for the Apple Watch, the iPad, Vision OS, Vision Pro, not Vision OS, but Vision Pro, and the Max. And then we'll wrap this up all in the main show, no post show today, but we'll wrap that up with a discussion on our purchase plans for the rest of the year, just around the Apple stuff. So watch, iPad, Vision, Mac, all of those kinds of things. How does that sound for a show for today?
Yeah, it sounds good. And like you said, the rumor mill is one thing, but what Apple usually does, it's pretty standard for around this time of year. The dates will change, but the events, the way you described it is how it usually plays out. So if anything, we're still expecting that, even if we don't have a date. So
yeah. Whether it's the 3rd, probably won't be the 3rd. They usually try and avoid the day after Labor Day, but whether it's the 3rd, the 10th, or the 17th, one of those 3 dates is the most likely, and then it'll follow 3 days and then 10 days for the key milestones. 3 days for pre-orders, 10 days for those that are fortunate enough to get one on day one. All right. Well, let's hit the music. Now, this is the Gadgets for Families tech show, the tech show where you get these two grandpas, Jay and I, talking tech, rumors, a lot of rumors at the moment, and sharing opinions about just about anything, because that's how grandpas are. I'm your host, Greg Cunningham.
And I'm your host, Jay Benjamin. Thank you for joining us this week. We should be a pretty straightforward episode, right, Greg? Short and sweet this week.
Yeah. We say that and then we run for 2 hours, but I'm really hoping we don't run for 2 hours today. So,
yeah, that's how it usually goes.
Yep. Now, before we dive in, just a reminder that you can find us both in your favorite podcast player. If you haven't used Overcast in a while, it got a really nice redesign, like a full rewrite from the ground up, including the user interface. It's fantastic. So favorite podcast player, and Apple just announced that Apple Podcasts is actually available on the web. So if you don't have an Apple device, you can get Apple Podcasts in Chrome and Edge and Firefox and a couple of other places, or on YouTube. Take your pick. We don't care. Pick one
Yeah.
or both. Cool.
Yeah.
But here's your challenge this week for everybody out there listening and or watching. Share the show with someone that has never watched it before. Pick this episode or maybe one of our more recent ones, the one last week about the iPhone rumors. If you got somebody thinking about an iPhone, share it out with them. Let's get this out there. And, if everybody found 5 people to share it with, we could really do some cool stuff with the show. So,
Yeah.
let's just do some quick catch up because this is going to lead into the conversation about purchasing iPhones. But we had some pretty big storms for southern Utah. Now, I live in a desert, right? So you have to understand when we talk about rain in a desert, it is not Houston style
Right.
rain, right? But
Right.
these storms, while they didn't last as long as a Houston storm would last, they had similar intensity to some of the storms that I went through in Houston. Not hurricane, of course, right? But some of the normal thunder and rainstorms that we would get in Houston, this had that level of intensity, which for this part of Utah is not normal.
Right.
So we were actually Friday, we took a drive and went through a little town. I say little, it's not super little, but a town. And then Saturday, when we were out to grab some lunch with the kiddos, somebody mentioned to us that town had been flooding, and so I pulled it up, and sure enough, we had driven past the high school just the day before, and you've got vehicles driving past the road in front of the high school in 2 feet of water. So,
Wow.
yeah,
Okay.
I mean, we're not designed, and the ground here is a clay, so it
Yes.
just doesn't absorb, that much water that quickly. So anyway, so we got these storms. The whole point of this, um, I sent Jason pictures. I got some pretty good pictures
Yeah.
post storm, and that's gonna lead into when we talk about phones and what's coming this year. Because when I take pictures, I don't take a ton of them, right? I
Yep.
don't take hundreds and hundreds. I send Jay a picture about once every couple of weeks. I actually should have.
Right.
I was too focused the other day. I went on a 31 plus mile bike ride and through some pretty country, and I should have taken more pictures, but I was more focused on. So I was on a main road, and it was a long ride, and making sure my battery lasted, and it was raining a
Yeah.
little bit. So, but when I take pictures, I want them to be the absolute best that they can be. And the one of the red clouds and behind the palm trees, that is the caliber of photo that I
Yeah.
want to take.
Yeah. Yeah. Some really crazy detail in those pictures too. And you told me it was zoomed in what 5 times or something like that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that
yeah.
was the 5X on the Max, and that's the only phone right now that's got that 5X zoom lens, whatever they called it. The Apple put their fancy name on the telescopic lens, but yeah.
Right. Right. Yeah. And really cool details. The colors really popped. It just didn't look like a standard, super zoomed in like picture where it starts getting a little blurry around the smaller details and stuff like that. So, yeah, I'm with you. A better camera is kind of a given when it comes to iPhones, or at least the pros, right? We know a better camera's coming, but to what extent is that camera going to be improved? It's going to be a
Yeah.
huge factor for you, I'm sure.
Yep. Yep. All right, so we're giving you hints. Hint 1 is timeline. Jay might not be on a cruise when the iPhones drop, and hint 2 is cameras. So, hold on to those hints. I just want to drop a couple of tips because we're getting to that the public betas keep coming out. They're coming out faster. And let's say the event is on the 10th, pre-orders are on the 13th. Most likely means that it's the 16th, right? That Monday
Right.
of the week of the iPhone drop that we'll get the new OSs. So don't install the betas. Just don't do it, right? And now is not the time Apple even pushed out a 17.6.1 release this week that had some
Yep.
bug fixes because it caused some issues. It seems like on all their platforms. So HomePods, Mac, iPhone, iPad, Apple Watch, everything got a bump update. So don't install the betas. That's my
Right.
tip and reminder. Don't install the betas.
Right. And we saw last year when we upgraded to 17. Remember, there was some, behind the scenes issues across the board with everything, whether it was syncing with iCloud, your HomePods, Apple TV, HomeKit had some major issues and stuff. So, these major updates, it changes a lot of things behind the scenes. So definitely upgrade to those updates that are available that have security bug fixes and patches and stuff like that. But it definitely fix any other background issues that they may be experiencing. So don't upgrade to the beta, but yeah,
Yeah.
definitely do
And
those updates.
I hope we don't get the background issues, but I'm not encouraged because so I listen to a lot of music and
Hmm.
I did put the beta on my iPad. And the first time I tried to add a new song to one of my playlists after,
Yep.
it says, I don't understand. Like, I'm not speaking in a foreign language. So, something about whatever's on the back end with 18 is not playing super nice with everything else, which is on the previous version. So, I can't use a couple of those features. So, that may sound like a
Right.
minor thing, but I just hope that we don't end up with all kinds of issues in the background because that's the last thing that we need. So don't
Yeah.
install the betas. Just don't do it.
Yeah. Yeah. And you mentioned, a minor thing it sounds like a minor thing to mention, but it could be major to you because you use that feature a lot. And one of the things that I use a lot again was Control Center. I was really excited about these upgrades um, to just to Control Center alone, and I noticed using it since the last update that whenever I scroll down to to open the Control Center menu, it starts scrolling through those pages, and it's super annoying. It's a bug that hadn't been an issue with all of the betas until just this last week. But man, it is really bothering me. So, I just scroll down the menu and it scrolls down to, my HomeKit devices. And that's not the page that I'm looking for. I'm always
Yeah.
looking for that first page. And, yeah, so just minor stuff like that. Just if you don't have to deal with it, just don't deal with it until the main release comes out next September, next month. So,
Yep.
but if you are going to do the beta, or if you're not going to do the beta, one thing we always talk about on this show is backup, backup, backup. You should always be backing up your device anyway. But if you hadn't been doing it, now is a good time to do it. So just a quick reminder to everyone: we are going to be getting iOS 18 coming out pretty soon. Um, there's like Greg mentioned, there's an update to 17 right now that has some minor fixes and bug fixes and stuff to it. So you should always be backing up your device. Remember all of those pictures you've taken all year. You don't want to lose those trying to upgrade to a beta, or just trying to do an upgrade period. You don't want to break your device and lose all of those memories. So uh, back your devices up today. If you're hearing this podcast, the show, watching it on YouTube, pause it for a second, do a quick backup.
Yep. And make sure auto backups is turned on. It's
Yeah,
just
that's
not
always
that
a good idea.
it's not that hard. So all right. So let's talk about this. Last week in our post show, and you can go back and listen to that or watch the bonus video, we talked about iPhone purchase plans. And
Hmm.
just as a quick summary, there are most likely devices in our families, but not necessarily directly for us. That was kind of the summary version of that. Jay and I are big advocates of uh, device hand me downs.
Right.
So at least when I had kids in the house. They were big fans of that. Although they might be big fans of it now that they have to pay for them themselves too. Um, but anyway, there's potential devices in our households, but we weren't sure if they would be for us. So, Jay, anything changed there? And does that potential timeline of devices landing on the FedEx trucks and in your home on the 20th potentially, does that change what you talked to us about from last week?
Not much, but so you did send me that rumor from Min Chi Kuo, um, with some actual leak parts and stuff. And like we always say on the show, when Apple gets to a certain point in production, it's hard to plug these leaks, right? Parts start leaking out, pieces of the phone start leaking out. And while I say that this one was more, it seemed more creditable. One, because of the source, right? But two, because again, if they're mid production like that, then usually these parts that are leaking aren't just like, what do they call those? Those tests, not tests,
Yeah,
but like those
the prototypes and
yeah, those prototypes and basically like color swatches of the phone that Apple goes through and they say this one, this one, this one, and that one. And but all of the colors leak out like months and months in advance. No, these that leaked out seem to be um, camera lens colors, and these seems like the colors that Apple are going to go with. And there's that deep gold or whatever they're going to call it. Looks really
bronze.
nice. Yeah, more like a bronze. It looks really. It looks like it'll be a nice color on the phone, even though we just saw little bits of it. Um, that color could get me on board if it looks good on the main device. But as of now, no, it's still only targeting one iPhone 16. Um, but we'll see. We'll see. Not much has changed. How about you?
Yeah, I was wondering, well, I'll get to that in a second, but I was wondering if that color, plus the fact that you could have it before you left on your cruise, you wouldn't
Yeah,
have to worry about FedEx showing up while you were gone. I thought, oh, maybe that'll get Jason to do his.
yeah,
But I know you worry about the hand me down because you're not sure you'd be able to hand down your bigger phone because your wife doesn't necessarily want the bigger phone and all that kind of stuff. So,
right,
I mean,
right,
this is not the last time we're going to talk about this. They're going to do the event. I mean, they'll do the event on Tuesday, which is great for us because, well, if they do it on Monday, we'll record on Monday. If they do it on Tuesday, we'll record on Tuesday. But
right.
we'll let you know what our plans are for pre-orders, and then of course the week after that, we'll tell you what we actually did. So,
Yeah,
um, so I was leaning away. I was really wanting to avoid buying a phone this year.
yeah.
Um, but I'm starting to get the Apple reality distortion field is kicking in. So I would have to say that, especially if there are some camera improvements. Now, I really hope that they put equal cameras in the big and the regular
Right.
phones,
Both
and
pros.
yeah, and then the battery bump, because that means I could get that crazy good battery life, out of
Yeah.
the regular phone too. But size wise, I really would prefer to go down in size. But
Well,
I
we
took
know just by nature that the Max is going to have a better battery life, right? Bigger phone, better, more space means bigger battery in that device. So, just the nature of the phone is going to have the best battery life on the
right.
Max.
But the rumors on the battery improvement had the regular phone improving more than the
Right.
Max phone, right? So, no, I mean, I'm getting most of a day now. Well, I'm getting all day battery life out of this Max. If I could get all day battery life out of the other one, that would be fine. The difference now is, when I was working at home, it would sit on a charger while I worked,
Right.
right? And now I don't have a dedicated space where I work. I'm sitting outside right now. I sit on the couch. I sit at the table or whatever. So I am using the phone without a charger way more. But anyway, so the camera improvements. After I took those pictures, I thought, man, they're going to have some camera improvement that's going to
Mm-hmm.
make me be able to continue, because I just snap those pictures, right? I mean, I'm not fiddling with stuff. I'm zooming it in the way I want it, sort of kind of centering it up the way I want and hitting the button and moving on with life. That's how
Yep.
I want to take the pictures, especially if I'm out on a ride. So I'm going to say that I think it's more likely than not that I'm going to upgrade at this point. Whereas before I was on the other end
Yeah.
saying it was most likely that I'm not going to. And then I still have to figure out what we're going to do with, because my wife's phone, iPhone mini's battery life is just not
Yeah.
good, right? And it's a 13, so we're talking a 3-year-old or a three generation back phone. Can't
Yep.
remember when we bought it, but the battery life is just not good. She does not have the scenario where she keeps it in her back pocket as much anymore. That's what she did at school, and that's why she wanted the smallest phone
Hmm.
possible, is because then she didn't have to worry about when she sat down in a chair it popping out, or any of that kind of stuff. So, and then I know that both Dustin and Wyatt really are getting to the point where they're going to need new phones, especially with some of the professional stuff they want to do. So no
Right.
changes there, but at least for me, I think I'm more likely to upgrade, which means then I need to check and see if anybody wants the bigger phone first before maybe one of those folks will want the bigger phone, and then I can have an even better reason
Right.
to
Right.
get a new phone. So
Well, and then like you mentioned, this time of the year is exciting for us, right? I mean, yeah, we're focused on the phone, but there's so much other stuff too that Apple could potentially, new services, new music services, new plans, stuff like that, upgrades to iCloud. There's a ton of things that they could potentially mention, but yeah, this time of year is exciting for us too. So even though we'll say one week, we'll go back and forth a lot.
yeah,
Like, I'm
yeah,
not getting the phone, and now I really don't plan on getting it, but seeing that color in person may tempt me. Camera improvements, whatever improvements, right? There may be something with Apple Intelligence too that catches our eye, and we'll say, okay, no, we're all in on it. But
yep.
yeah,
Well, and then you got to sit down and look at the finances and say, okay, what do the finances support? Because as Jay
right,
mentioned when we talked about buying cars, don't compromise future you
yeah,
for current you. So anyway,
yeah,
okay, I know we said don't install the betas, but I put the beta on my iPad. Jay told me I needed to for the show,
yeah,
so um, you know all that kind of fun stuff. So um,
yeah.
eh,
Especially, there wasn't anything really you were looking forward to on the iPad anyway, right?
well, there
There was
were
some
a
changes
couple
on
of
the
things.
phone.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there
yeah,
were a couple of things. So I'm going to go through this fast because we want to get to the main topic and we don't want to run 2 hours today. But the messaging stuff is cool. Sticker tapbacks I've already been using. I like sticker tapbacks, that it's not just those monochrome thumbs up, thumbs down, ha, exclamation stuff, that you can basically use any emoji or
right.
any of that kind of stuff and do tapbacks. Those are cool. I did get to see the text effects. That's
Yep.
pretty cool too. I think that's going to be fun for communication. And scheduled send, I think, could be useful. So I did a test on scheduled send, and the first one actually didn't work. But then the second one, it went through just fine. So I think that messaging stuff is cool. I think it's probably going to be more meaningful on the phone, right? But I
I
wasn't
think
about
so.
to put the beta on my phone, considering that I already have some instability on all my sync stuff. So, um, yeah. So the
Yeah,
messaging stuff is pretty cool. The problem is if you don't use that kind of stuff every single day, and about the only person I would probably communicate using that kind of stuff with, two, you and my sister,
right.
right? That's about it. I am hopeful that we'll get the RCS stuff because I'm not on my phone yet. The RCS would be nice because we have a group thread going with our family. We're trying to plan a family vacation, and it'd be really nice for that one Android phone to stop messing with my group thread. But
Right.
the thing I was the most excited about was SmartScript, because I love to write on the
Yes.
iPad. It's the reason I got it. It's the reason I bought the Apple Pencil Pro. So I was hoping that it would really be magical. It's okay. It
Yeah.
does clean up my handwriting, but my handwriting is terrible. So it makes it a little less terrible. It doesn't make it into, something any teacher I ever had would be okay with on an assignment, right? So
Right.
And I know they don't want it to not look like your handwriting, but it's almost like I wish they had a slider so I could say, adjust it. Because honestly, I don't know that I care that it looks like my handwriting. I just want to be able to go back and read my notes when I'm done with it. So,
Yeah.
and what I did notice, if anybody hasn't tried this yet, is when you write, you kind of have to finish writing the sentence and then it adjusts the whole thing. It's not doing it dynamically as you go along. So it waits for you to
Right.
pause and then it adjusts it. So, yeah.
Yeah. Not too major of a feature, but I can see it being helpful to
Yeah.
notes and stuff like that.
What I really need is I've talked about using day one for journaling. The only thing they don't have that I really wish they had was allowing you to actually write, choose a paper, a lined paper style, and actually write in the
Hmm.
journal. They convert it to text. And maybe that'll get better as the Apple Intelligence stuff kicks in. The engine that'll convert it to text, the large language models and stuff like that'll get better. But
Hmm.
I'll try writing a journal, like a long form journal entry, like on Sunday or something, and I'll get 3 or 4 minutes in and I give up and I grab my keyboard because it's so hard to get it to convert everything correctly and all that kind of stuff. So I'm hoping that gets better, but obviously I'm only on 18, not 18.1, which is when they start really introducing the large language models and the AI features. So
Yeah.
Math Notes is super cool.
Yeah.
I did the test, right? I put A equals this, B equals this, and I did A plus B equals, and it solved the problem for me. And then you
Yeah.
go back and you erase one of the factors and you put in a new value and it redoes it for you. Super, super, super cool. And if I was still in college, I think I would use that a ton. Most of you may not know, but I actually was in science because I thought I wanted to be a doctor and pay the price to go be a doctor, which I quickly learned that I did not want to do. But, all of the math and stuff that I had to take, yeah, it is really cool, but it's not
Yeah.
cool enough to make me want to take any math course ever
Right.
again.
Right. This is something that I knew it when they saw it, when they announced it. I'm like, I just won't get any use out of it, but it is a really cool feature to have, and yep, I'm glad they added it. Someone's going to get
But
some really good use out of it.
I mean, I could see them using it as a selling feature to sell iPads into education,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. So, and I don't know about the schools down here in the school district right now, but I think I mentioned this that our district they had Chromebooks in elementary school, but then they had iPads for people to use too.
Yeah.
And then when you got in high school, you got an iPad as a freshman, and then you kept it all 4 years, and then they gave it to you when you left. You kept it.
Yeah.
So I could see them doing that. So Passwords app is fine. It is not some super fancy thing. Basically, all they did was export the settings
Right.
section for passwords and put it in its own app, which is great. The coolest thing about the Passwords app is I actually like the icon. It's pretty cool.
It is cool.
Yeah.
And I think I mentioned that before, right? It wasn't like a super like standalone app, right? They just didn't bury it behind the settings. They just gave it its own icon, but it's still really useful. It's still a really good,
Yeah.
useful app, right?
Yep.
Being able to go in and share passwords and stuff. So, yeah, it wasn't a huge deal, but I think it'll be fine as its own app, and as they add features and stuff onto it, now you don't have to scroll through pages and pages of settings to find it. So, yeah, good
Yeah.
improvement.
I mean, especially now where it seems like all of the other password apps are starting to have security concerns, right? I mean, I
Mm,
left LastPass because it had some major security issues.
right.
Um, and that one, I think the biggest one was human related, but it is what it is, right? And so, yeah, I think it's fine.
Yeah.
And then the other stuff is cool. I like dark mode icons, so I run my iPad in dark mode. So I like the dark mode icons. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
The tinting, the icon tinting is horrible. It's just bad.
Yeah, I didn't think
And
I was going to use it, and I hadn't used it at all. So, yeah, it wasn't a
I
big deal to me.
tried, I really, really tried. And I have one of the background pictures that I have on right now. I was trying to match the icons somewhat to the color, and it just
Yeah.
it was not cool. So no, that's not for me. At least not the way they've implemented it. I do like that you can resize widgets. I had forgotten that I could do this, and I had a
Right.
widget that was big, and so I just went and resized it down to small. Great. But again, none of this stuff is earth shattering. So,
Right.
a couple of things that makes me wonder. One, first of all, how much is this phone centric? Phone centric, right? How much would I get out of this? I mean, other than math notes and smart script, I mean, really, iPad was the redheaded stepchild, and we talked about this when at
Well, yeah.
WWDC, right? And
Yeah.
then how much is Apple Intelligence really going to make a difference, right? And is it going to be one of those things where, yes, this was not some revolutionary update, but once they start feeding us the Apple Intelligence features, it's just like these small things added on top of another small thing added on top of another small thing, right? That
Yeah.
eventually you go, okay, yeah, this really was a transformative version of the operating system. But I don't know, it's just not there right now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so
So,
don't
so do
install
you
the
stay?
beta. There's no
Yeah.
reason.
Right. Right. So, do you stay in dark mode all the time, or do you schedule it, or you go back and? Because I go back and forth. I use just the time of the day. Right during the day, it's light mode, dark mode at night. You stay in dark mode all the time.
My iPad stays in dark mode all the time. My Mac is what is my Mac in? My Mac mode is in dark mode, but oddly enough, I turn a lot of my app apps there,
Mm-hmm.
especially the Microsoft stuff. So Word, OneNote, Excel, all that kind of stuff. You can override the system there, and so they're all in light mode.
Okay.
Um, so, and I honestly I can't remember on my phone, and I can't look at it because I'm actually recording on the Pro Max today. I
Okay.
thought I'd give that a try. So, yeah. So no, I
All
like
right.
the dark mode, but apparently, even if you were in light mode, you can still do dark mode icons.
Yes. Yeah. You could mix and match. I kind of like both. I like my regular icons too, but those dark mode icons, they are really cool. I like
Yeah.
the I
So,
like the colors now. Yeah.
and then you can do small and large. I shifted to large. Basically, it just makes the icon bigger and gets rid of the text. Maybe I'll leave that on for a little bit, and then you can do automatic. So the icons are going to switch. Maybe I should switch that. Automatic actually is it's going to go with your system theme.
Mm-hmm.
So, but dark mode, light mode. Now, see, I just switched it. Definitely want to go back to the dark mode icons now that I'm used to them. I just like the dark mode icon.
Yeah.
So yeah. But yeah, the tinting, I couldn't get it to match well. I couldn't get it to go dark enough. You're supposed to be able to use a picker, and I couldn't get the picker to work. Hopefully, that's just a beta thing. But yeah. All right. Anything else on the betas?
No, no, that was all. You don't regret upgrading, do you?
Nah.
I mean, it wasn't a big deal, and it didn't break anything major. Although we still keep telling people not to upgrade, but you
Yeah.
still find it pretty functional, right?
Oh yeah, it's fine. It's fine. And it used to be. I remember back in the day when you and I would like schedule like a whole day.
Mm-hmm.
Look, don't bother us for this whole day because we got to go through all these new features and figure out what's going on. Not Brandon Butch level of detail, right? But
Right.
we've got to go figure this stuff out. And now it seems like I can upgrade a device and it doesn't take very long anymore because it's just so fast now.
Yeah.
But um, after I do it, it's like a 15 to 30 minutes. And I've already gone through and tested every single feature. And then it's like, oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
and I'm not saying that's bad. It's almost like the same thing with hardware, right? I mean, no major redesign on hardware. Well, how are you going to improve on the current design, right? I mean, what are you really going to do to improve on it unless you're going to get into folding and stuff like that?
Yeah.
So it is iterative, right? And same thing with the operating system. And honestly, the systems are getting so complex that if they were to do like a massive overhaul and add 400 features, I don't even know how we would deal with it today because the system is already so complex.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so
and I don't see that in the future. I think they know that they've seen the mistakes that Microsoft has made with, you know what I mean, changing, like overhauling a operating system just for the next version. I don't think, I think we'll just see additions to the current operating system. I don't think we'll see
Right.
a major overhaul. Now they'll call it a major overhaul. They'll call it the most features ever in iOS every year at WWDC, but I don't think we'll see anything major that's gonna you know upset everyone, and everyone to
Yep.
have their pitchforks and saying I'm getting rid of my iPhone because they moved this button, they moved the start button, or they moved the, you know what I mean, the Windows key, like everyone was doing back with Windows. So yeah, I don't think we'll see anything major like that.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about some rumors around some additional hardware. Okay.
Okay.
So Mac Rumors has a guide out that's upcoming Apple products. And basically, they're talking about stuff for this year and for next year, not getting into iPhone 17 territory, but like stuff beyond the iPhone that we haven't seen updates for yet. So you can go check that out if you want. But I want to start with my favorite Apple device, which is still my favorite Apple device, even with the new iPad Pro.
Mm-hmm.
Still my favorite Apple device. Or maybe favorite isn't the right word, but it's the device that just works in my life,
Right.
right? It just blends into my life so well and supports my lifestyle so well. And that's the Apple Watch.
Right.
So there's a few things going on with the Apple Watch. Last year, Gurman dropped a release that said, hey, it's going to be the 10th anniversary of the Apple Watch. And so they're going to potentially do something really big, Apple Watch 10 or Apple Watch X, right? If you go back to the iPhone 10. So that's part of it. But then we also believe that we're going to get a new Ultra as well.
Right.
So biggest things for the Apple Watch 10, and again, this is what I'm looking at, quoting Gurman, is a bigger display that's almost as big as the Apple Watch Ultra 2 display. So same rounded, squared design, not the Ultra design, but the same size of screen as the Apple Watch Ultra.
Right.
So that's a pretty big deal. And if that's the case, then it's also going to be 45 and 49 millimeters. So that's how they measure them, right? So no more of this 41 millimeter stuff. So if that's the case, in theory, I would think that the battery life would be improved too, right? Because
I
you're
would
going to
think
get a
so.
bigger case, you're going to have a bigger battery, which is the biggest thing that came with the Ultra, right? Was okay, all of a sudden we've got this Gigantor watch, which I actually had my wife try on before we bought her that Series 9. She's
Mm-hmm.
like, yeah, no way. Um,
Right.
so yeah. So more battery life, I think there. There's been the rumors about the blood pressure monitor, sleep apnea, glucose, you know, um, probably not going to see that.
Yeah.
All of them, this is tough, right? I mean, it's tough to
Right.
put those kinds of things in there. So I don't know that we're actually going to see any of those new sensors or any of that kind of stuff in there. So I think the
Right.
biggest thing is all of a sudden it's going to be bigger, maybe better battery life. I think those are the biggest rumors for the Apple Watch Series 10. Did you see anything else in there that we should mention on the Series 10?
No, and I know, like we said, the blood pressure monitor and a few of the other sensors and stuff, that's been rumored since what, the Series 8, and we look forward to that every year, and it just doesn't seem like it's going to happen in this version or this form factor of the watch, right? And it
Right.
just doesn't seem like they're going to change it without. And don't get me wrong, I'm not complaining that they hadn't changed it. I'm thankful that we've been able to reuse our bands from our older, you know what I mean, our older series of watches. It's pretty cool to be able to keep these bands and stuff, but it doesn't seem like Apple's going to be able to work that out until they change the whole form factor of the watch. So um, No, outside of bigger battery. Also, too, I was going to mention, isn't it a little strange how they really protect the Apple Watch from leaks and stuff? You notice that? Like we know series are coming. We know, oh, it's going to have a bigger screen, a brighter screen. Those are kind of standard rumors that anybody can guess every year, right? We know the Series 10 is going to have a bigger screen, a brighter screen, maybe rounder edges, but man, they really protect those parts leaks and stuff, right? We'll see buttons from the iPhone leak out months in advance, but not really much on the Apple Watch. So yeah, there's not really much to go on as far as rumors, but yeah, we know faster chip, we know
Yeah.
better battery life and all of that, and as that stands, that's already enough for me to upgrade to. So yeah, I'm
Yeah.
probably going to be looking for an Ultra 3 this year.
Let's hold on that conversation because that's for later
Right,
in the
right.
show. Because I want to have the conversation about the blood oxygen sensor. Remember, that's still disabled in the
Right.
9 and the Ultra 2. So we got to have that conversation when we come to what we think we're going to buy. So here, let me wrap up the rumors on the Apple Watch with Ultra 3, no major redesign, new chip, hopefully improved battery life.
Yeah.
Pretty much it, right? So when we get to the watch part, I want to talk about Series 10 versus um, Series 10 versus Ultra, if
Hmm.
it really is going to have better battery life, and the blood oxygen sensor. So,
Yeah.
all right. So that's the Apple Watch. 2 new ones coming. Yep. Just like every year. Like you said, not a ton of details. We don't really know if these new sensors are going to be ready to go or not. It may be, Gurman said that maybe if the blood pressure sensor is in there, it's not designed to give you an exact reading, but to tell you if something changed, which frankly would be enough for me.
Right.
Right. Hey, here's the baseline. We'll tell you if something has changed. Hey, something might have changed here. Go use your cuff. I'm
Right.
cool with that.
Right.
Right. So,
Yeah. I think I can deal with that too. Like, hey, it seems like it's elevated. Go get an accurate reading, and
yeah.
yeah, I'm with you on that.
Yep. All right. Let's talk about the one of these that I think Jay is most interested in, AirPods. So,
Yeah.
no AirPods Pro this year. There's rumors that AirPods Pro are coming next year with some potential health sensors. And I saw a really crazy rumor that if you had your AirPods in, it could authenticate you into a bunch of stuff, which I would find totally fascinating because your
Hmm.
ear inside your ear would definitely be unique. So, but anyway, pros not until next year. But rumor that there are going to be 2 versions of the regular AirPods and then AirPods Max are on the table too, for maybe not
Yep.
right now, but in the next few months. So you want to talk to us about the AirPods, Jay? Because I know you're chomping at the bit.
Yeah. So, like you said, no major pros update on a pro, which is what I was really looking for. But from what I can understand, this one's going to fall in between the form factor, at least in between the uh the current AirPods and the AirPod Pros, right? The fit. Um, I don't really know what that means, right? Is it going to be more of like an earbud kind of situation, or if it's how it kind of rests on your
Yeah. So
earlobe?
think about this as, from what I can tell, right? Think about this as the stem from the Pro,
Hmm.
but the earpiece from the regular AirPods, which means no silicone tips, right?
Right,
So it's going to be more of you're putting the whole thing in your ear, but it's getting the shorter stems from the Pros.
right, right. I'm, I'm, I think I'm all for that. I think that'll be fine, depending on the price too, right? If this is the regular AirPods, but with that price increase that Apple's been known to do, then I'll probably, I wouldn't consider it. But um, depending on the features that they add in, right? Because they're good about giving you value in those. If we get it, the active noise cancellation and some of the um, what do they call that? I
Personalized
forget what they got.
audio and
right. Some stuff like that. I can see I can see them making that worth it. Maybe not a price increase, but making putting adding that value into the regular version of the AirPods. I can yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. I mean, here's a couple of things. So, two versions actually they're saying they're going to have, and one would have active noise cancellation, obviously more
Hmm.
expensive of the two, and then the other one would not. But USB-C instead of Lightning for the
Right.
charging case, right? That's a big deal. Upgrade to the H2 chip, which means you get higher Bluetooth connectivity than what you had before, faster, more reliable, all of that kind of stuff, as well as power efficiency, which could contribute to um, longer battery life. And then, that new chip um, gives you some better audio experience. So potentially two models, right?
Hmm.
Um, so you get a lower end one without active noise cancellation. Again, this is all rumor. Lower one without active noise cancellation and one with active noise cancellation. Now, some people don't like the active noise cancellation. They say it feels like there's pressure in their ears, all that kind of stuff. But I got to tell
Hmm.
you, if you're going to get a pair of these, I would get the active noise cancellation pair, unless that
Yeah.
bothers you, right?
Right. I don't know how big of a deal is having USB-C unless they pull out wireless charging. Well, then again, only the pros have the wireless charging case originally,
Yeah.
right? I know you can buy a wireless a charging case for them, but I would think at this point, I would imagine at least the more expensive model with the active noise cancellation should have a wireless charging case, but of course, we won't know until Apple announces it. But I just
Yeah.
don't know how big of a deal is the
It,
USB-C charging,
it's going to be a bigger deal as more people upgrade their iPhones away from the phones that have
right? Getting
Lightning,
away from those
right?
lightning chargers, yeah.
Yeah. And then the AirPods Max. So I'm using the AirPods Max right now. I use them at least once a week. I actually been using them a couple of other times because sometimes it's nice to just get that full cancellation effect. Upgrade to those USB-C instead of Lightning. Um, I mean, one of the reasons is European regulations are requiring USB-C now too, right? I mean, so
Yeah.
there's some stuff there. Um, and then they're probably going to have a USB-C to 3.5 millimeter adapter, right? So that you
Okay.
can plug them
Yeah.
into a headphone jack if you need to. But I mean, updated specs, same kind of stuff. So, um, you know, I definitely not on my list to upgrade these. I mean, once these die, I don't know what I'm going to do. The hard part for me is going away from Apple because of the pairing and the auto device switching, right? The fact that if I'm
Yeah.
listening to something on one device with my headphones and I get a call on another one, it just switches automatically. All of that kind of stuff is super important to me. So,
Yeah.
but man, they were expensive. So I'm not looking to replace, definitely not looking to replace these. So,
Yeah. And not much as far as, potential features and stuff with those, right? I
yeah.
mean, because they were already, I mean, they were Maxes for a reason, right? They were already full of all of the best features and stuff. So
Yep. Yep.
yeah.
All right. Let's talk iPad. So, iPad 11th gen. So, of course, because I just happened to buy two 10th gens. Um,
Right.
iPad 11th gen and then iPad mini 7. So, nothing super major here. The iPad 11 will be the same as, remember, the 10s because I just bought these, right? They're the non-home button. They've got the camera on the right on the landscape side. They'll work with
Hmm.
certain Apple Pencils. Don't get us into the whole which Apple Pencil works with which iPad right now because it's a whole thing. Um, but really, it's just faster chip, right? I mean, so
Right.
it's going to go. Um, the 10th gen, I didn't realize this. It's running on the A14 Bionic, which is a 4-year-old chip. I mean,
Right.
honestly, though, for what you're going to use it for, any of these chips are fine, right? It doesn't really matter. But
Yeah.
I think they're going to have to take it up to at least the A17 Pro because that's what you have to run Apple Intelligence. So I just don't see them launching any products going forward that
Right.
aren't capable
To
of
run
running
Apple
Apple
AI.
Intelligence. So unless they change the architecture of Apple Intelligence to say, hey, if you're on something other than this chip and this much RAM, we'll offload some of that to those special servers that they set up, right? Because they've got those
Yeah.
servers running Apple hardware to do this. If they change their architecture and say we will allow these older devices, but we're going to offload that into the cloud and you won't be able to do it if you don't have an internet connection,
Hmm.
then they could do that. Otherwise, they've got to put at least 8 gigs of RAM in the A17 Pro. I think it was 8 gigs. We talked about this last week with the phones, right?
Right.
At least the A17 Pro and the 8 gigs of RAM in order to run Apple Intelligence,
Well,
right?
and it's not beyond Apple, right? These are their chips. This is their hardware. It's not beyond them to create a custom version of an older chip,
Yeah.
right? Just for this iPad, not anything that's going to go into any other device. Um, maybe an Apple TV or something like that, right? So they can get Apple Intelligence on the Apple TV. But yeah, it's not beyond the realm of possibilities for them to create just a custom chip for this 11 Gen iPad. And but I'm with you. I don't see them putting anything less than a the 17 in it. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
I
We'll see.
I don't
Also,
I don't think they'll go custom because there's cost associated
right?
with that, right? And this is their cheapest
Yep, they have to keep the
iPad,
costs down.
right? This is their
Yeah,
cheapest iPad, so whatever chip can run it that's the cheapest, it's going to go in here because I don't think they're going to want to increase the price, right? I mean, this thing is
right.
running at what is it running at $349,
Yeah,
something like that.
yep,
Um,
yep.
so if it's going to debut at that same price, which I think is a good price, because again, this is the default iPad that we recommend to everybody. You want an
Yeah,
iPad? This is the iPad you should get. You
yeah.
should prove why this one won't work for what you need it to. And if they add an A17 processor into it, and let's say it can support any of the Apple Pencils, which in theory it probably should be able to at that point,
Hmm.
I just don't know how you justify going to the Air. And if you want the Pro, you want the Pro, and you need the Pro. So I don't know why you wouldn't start with this one.
Yeah. So this one though, we don't know if we're getting the 11 Gen iPad this year, right? This is one of those. This is the same with the Mini, right? We can say, oh, they're looking for it, they're targeting the fall of this year or whatever. We just don't know with Apple, right? It seems like it makes sense to release an 11 Gen, right? We got new Pros earlier this year. Um, yeah, I just don't. We just don't know. But if they do release it this year, or they'll do a separate keynote, right? A separate event, right? Because they usually the iPhone is the focus of the iPhone event, and then the next month
October,
we'll
right?
start. Yeah, we'll
iPad and
start
Mac
talking
in
iPads.
October. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So we don't know, but um, we still recommend if you can hold off from buying anything new right now, and just wait till we have a clearer picture
yeah,
of especially on the iPads. And then we know that the MacBook Air is getting the newest chip. So hold off on those at least for the next few weeks.
yeah. I would absolutely hold off.
Yeah.
And I think the only way I think they would do this, especially the 11, I don't think the mini's going to get announced anytime soon. The mini could be a
Mhm.
press release at some point, right? And it would be just fine. But
Right.
the 11, I could see them adding it into the keynote if they want to say, and now our entry level iPad can also run Apple Intelligence, and which will be probably an October release, right? For 18.1. That would be the
Right.
assumption, is that it'll release sometime in October. So, I could see them adding it in there, but I could also see them deferring both of these and announcing them along with new Macs. Because remember, Macs are back chip. I mean, the iPad's the only thing that's got the M4
Right.
chip in it. So you've got rumors that late 2024 to early 2025, you've got rumors of a new iMac, a new MacBook Pro, and a new Mac Mini, all running the M4 series of
Right.
chips. So that could be a an October event, let all the iPhone stuff settle down, an October event to say, hey, here's the new iPads that are coming, here's the new Macs that are coming. All of these things are going to run Apple Intelligence, and 18.1 is going to drop next week, right after you pre-order these devices, and these new devices will show up
Yeah.
with that dot release that's got all the Apple, or at least the start of some of the Apple Intelligence features, because we know that's a long rollout, right? Not a everything at once.
Yeah. That reminds me too. The MacBook Air is not getting the A4 chip. It's getting, I mean, the M4 chip, right?
Yeah, not
Or
yet. So the rumor, so the article is talking about this. This is from Mac Rumors again, but they're saying in 2025 the MacBook Air, the Mac Studio, and the Mac Pro should get the
M4.
M4, or possibly the M5, depending on the timing. Like the Mac Pro, for example, it's saying late in
Right.
2025, so it could be ready for the M5 chip. But yeah, so the Air, the Studio, and the Pro are all set to come spring 2025 through
Right.
late 2025.
Such a weird timeline, right? Because then we'll already be looking for the MacBook Pro with the M5, and such a weird time. I don't know. There has to be some kind of reason why they stagger device releases like that.
Yeah,
Some kind
unless
of
they're going to
business
go away
reason.
from an annual chip release, right? I mean, we know
Yeah.
Intel couldn't deliver on it. Now, Apple's done a much, much, much better job with chip production and chip design and advancement. But
Yeah.
at some point, these M series jumps are going to slow down, right? I mean, they can't, laws of physics, right? Just
Right. Yeah.
can they really continue to do this? And then at some point, the question becomes, do you really need to put the effort into every year having a new M series chip, right? Or can you say we're going to go like they do with the iPad Pros, for example, we're going to go to an 18-month release cycle or an every
Right.
other year release cycle, and whatever devices we put out, their chips are so good that whatever devices we put out are just going to get whatever chip is
Right.
available at the time, right? And not worry about it, because I mean, the Mac Pro is the exception. If it's going to be the Pro, it's got to have the highest end of whatever is available at the time, because they're so dang expensive. It's such a
Right.
niche market that when people buy these, they want to be able to hold on to them for a long period of time.
Yeah.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Right. But everything else, well, maybe the Mac Studio falls into that a little bit too, right? I think people that
Yeah.
buy a Mac
I would think
Studio are
so.
planning on holding on to it. And then you get down into the iMac, the Mac Mini, and the MacBook Air. They're not the heavy lifting stuff. So you could just say, hey, we're going to redesign them when we're ready, and they'll just get whatever chip is in there. And they may skip a generation of chip, right? I mean, iPad skipped the M3.
Yeah.
I mean, it went straight to the
To the
M4.
M4.
So I could see them getting to the point where they say, we're not going to do this. Every device has to get every series of chip. And also, we're not going to release a chip every single year. We're going to release chips when they're ready. And they're going to be so awesome that it's not going to matter.
Yeah.
And whatever devices we release are just going to get whatever chip is right for it at the time. So
Yeah.
that's the Apple controls their own destiny and is not dependent on anybody
Yeah.
for that kind of
Intel
stuff, right?
or
Yeah.
anyone else. Yeah. And you're right. I guess too. If as long as the features are what matters the most to people, right? The average consumer, they want the features, not necessarily the faster maxing out the chip every year. Most people just genuinely don't care about stuff like that.
Yeah.
So as long as it does the thing, it doesn't matter what's driving it to do it. So yeah,
Well, and while I don't have any real insight and I'm not a chip engineer or a software engineer, is there some of this? We talked about how iOS doesn't seem to have a whole lot except for Apple Intelligence. And we know Apple was behind the curve on it, on AI and stuff like that. But
hmm
do we get to the point where they have to say, look, if we want to start making meaningful updates, we have to lock in which chip we're using earlier, which means we can't always say that it's going to go on the latest and greatest chip, because we can't build features. If features are what people care about the most, right?
sure.
Is it more important to have the fastest processor, or is it more important to say we have a fully developed, fully functioning, bug-free feature But in order to do that, we didn't give you the latest and greatest chip in this particular device.
Yeah.
I would go for that, right? Because again, I'm running the best chip Apple has on this this iPad,
Right.
and the only time I ever feel the chip get warm is when I'm doing some handwriting stuff, and I don't think that has anything to do with maxing out the chip, right? I think it's so
Yeah.
I don't know of anything that's pushing the chip to its max. I mean, maybe Procreate or something like that with some of its tools and stuff that it's doing, but
Yeah.
yeah. So all right, so that's Mac, that's AirPods, iPad. The only other thing I wanted to mention is that rumor has it, I always keep thinking of the country song, but rumor has it that there's a cheaper Vision Pro on track for next year.
Okay. We mentioned
And
that before.
yeah,
These rumors seem to be picking up.
yeah. I mean, it's coming from, I think this one came from Gurman, but don't quote me on that. But and then that there's also a Vision Pro 2. So I'm guessing we're going to get a Vision next year, right? And a Vision Pro
Mm-hmm.
2 the year after is kind of what it's talking about. So, you know, if you've been thinking about a Vision Pro and just can't do that $3,500, maybe let a few things flesh out,
Mm-hmm.
right, before you decide to plunk down that money. Because I don't know. I mean, I don't see him getting the Vision device down to 1,500 or $1,000. I mean, maybe they'll get it down to 2,000 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then, just like we were just talking about with features, then it's a question of feature value, right? What am I'm going to pay for the features? Like, I don't know for my use case that I would care if somebody could see my eyes. So if they could get rid of that
Right.
function, right? And if that took $500 off of it, I don't know how much it really costs to do that part,
Right.
but that's more sensors, that's more cameras, that's an external display, right? I
Right.
don't want
Right.
the MetaQuest plastic shield, right? It always reminds me of the when Luke was training for the Force, right, and had to pull down the visor kind of
Right.
thing. But you know, give me the glass out there, but don't make it into a screen, right? Could that cut the price? But if they start talking about, well, you get the Vision, but it's not enabled for pros, so you don't get Mac pass through, right? Or you get
Yeah.
old version of Mac pass through and not that new gorgeous version that's got the massive double 4K display, right? And so it's really going to be a question of what features and functionality do they remove to get
Right.
that price down. It almost becomes, and that's fine. It almost becomes like everything else. Do I buy an iPhone or an iPhone Pro, an iPad or an iPad Pro, a MacBook or a MacBook Pro, right? It
Right.
almost becomes that sort of thing. Those are more based on capabilities of the devices, whereas with the Vision Pro, I think it's going to be more of feature sets, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So, but then we run into that same situation as with everything else, every other device. What could they strip out of the Vision Pro that'll make it to where it's just the X-Real glasses with triple the price, right? Because,
Yeah,
like you said, they're not going to get it down to the $1,500 range, which would make it a more palatable purchase for me, right? $1,500 for a Vision Pro like device is more within the realm of possibilities for me. But let's say they can't get the price down, they get it down to $2,300 or something like that, and they strip out the 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 screen on the front, all of those sensors, things like that. But if they start removing features,
yeah,
you know what I mean?
yeah,
That's the real kicker right there, right? You're just giving someone a $2,300 set of glasses that you can buy for, $600 or $700 or whatever those X-Real glasses are running from. If the feature sets are the same, it's just because this one is Apple and it's Vision Pro and it's triple the price or quadruple the price. I don't want to play that game with Apple. Not
yeah.
not with the Vision Pro.
Yeah, and we don't know how Apple Intelligence is going to bake into it because Apple
Right.
Intelligence is not even included in Vision Pro 2.0 or 2.
Right.
Anything, right? And so is that going to have to wait for more memory or a bigger chip? I can't imagine it doesn't have enough horsepower considering everything that the Vision Pro can already do today, right? So I do think it's going to be okay. What is it? And then I could see it coming down to, remember, I had this debate about the iPad Air versus the iPad Pro, right? I thought maybe I could get by with the iPad Air, and then it came down to be just a few $100 instead of the 1,000 that I thought was going to be the
Right.
differential it ended up being. And then it was, okay, for what I'm getting on top of it, which was Face ID and the screen and promotion and, all of those kinds of things, did it
Hmm.
make sense to pay the extra $400? And absolutely it did. And I do not regret that purchase at all. So I think that might be where we end up with the Vision Pro. So
Yeah. But I'm looking forward to it, though. I am looking forward to a cheaper version. But I'm like you. It just depends on what they strip out of it to get it cheaper. I'm
yeah,
okay with losing a lot of those sensors, a lot of, even the form factor or the build quality, right? It is a Apple device, right? The aluminum and some of the materials that they put into it um, really bump that price up. So I'm okay with even losing some of that. Um,
yeah.
but yeah, I'm not willing to skimp on a lot of those features.
Yeah, I mean, like these AirPods Max, if Apple had designed them, let's say they were plastic, like the Beats line,
Hmm.
right? Or like every other over the ear headphone that's out there, right? And they said, yeah, they're not quite as nice. They're not aluminum. They may not be as durable, but they're, $100 cheaper.
Yeah.
I would absolutely have gone that route, right? Or I would now anyway. Maybe not then, but I would now anyways, because the metal's heavy, right? I
Right.
mean, in theory, they could do some of those kinds of things and make it more general user friendly. Not, I'm pro. I've got a specific niche use case that I want to use this thing for.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that's it for the rumors. So I think that's about all we're going to see. I don't think we're going to see Macs. I really don't expect to see iPads, the watch, the phone, Apple Intelligence, AirPods, all of the things that kind of coalesce around the phone, right? And still, as much as I love my Apple Watch, it's still an accessory to the phone, right?
Right.
It is. So everything is phone centric in this. I think we'll get some quick announcements about where we are with Apple Intelligence and that kind of stuff. But all right, so if those are the rumors, then let's wrap this up with a discussion. We talked about the phones.
Hmm.
Everybody knows where we stand with the phones as of this moment. It'll be different next week. But
Right.
of all of these other things, so Apple Watch through the Mac and Vision Pro, what are the plans for, let's say, the rest of this year, maybe into the spring, for purchases? What are the plans for the Benjamin household with these other devices?
Okay. So when you put it that way, if we're talking into the spring of next year,
Yeah, because that's
uh,
the Max, right? That's potentially like the MacBook Air
right,
is the
right.
spring.
So I can see myself definitely upgrading the iPhone, at least until then, right? Because I mentioned, depending on how expensive this cruise goes, and it's always expensive with the kids. It always is. Um, that's going to determine whether or not I get a phone personally for myself, right? If we can get FedEx to deliver it to the porch in time, then my wife would definitely be upgrading her 13, and we'll probably do the whole iPhone shuffle thing, right?
Okay, let me
Um,
let me let me clarify then what I'm hearing you say, because I was under the impression that you're going to wait till the 17. It sounds like it's possible that you're going to get a Series 16 phone,
right,
just not necessarily on day one. It may have to wait for Christmas or whatever, and where
right,
you do your I save up my budget and all that kind of stuff thing.
right. It recovers from Christmas and all of that. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Okay.
yeah, if we're talking clear through next spring, I'll probably be on the 16 by next spring,
And that
right?
gold version, more than likely, that
Yeah.
bronzish, whatever it is. Okay.
Yeah, and the Pro Max. I'm always going to go with the Pro Max. I can't see me on any model besides that one. So yeah, it'll definitely be the Pro Max in that deep gold. Or if we say in next spring they're adding maybe one or two product red or something like that. It may be one of those. Although there's never been a Pro Max in product red, right? They always keep that color for.
Um,
Has there been a
I don't
product red?
remember, but
Yeah, I don't believe so.
it's been a while since they released Pro Colors in the spring, new Pro Colors in the spring.
right. I think the
I think
last
the
one
last
was
one
your
was
green.
my green
Yeah,
one, of course.
yeah, yeah. So, um, so the iPhone, it depends on the timing. Definitely a 16 for my wife. Uh, if
Not the
before the
Pro,
cruise, not the Pro,
just
no,
the
just the
16.
16. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. She's okay with that. She doesn't need or want any of those Pro features unless there's something that really catches her attention, right? For me personally, the Ultra 3 probably more than likely, but remember I used my Apple likes and got my model replaced, so no more microphone issues. Battery life is just as good as new, right? There's no, although I know they give you like refurbished models or whatever. This hadn't been like used. You know what I mean? So the battery
Yeah.
life is still
Your
great on this
capacity's
thing.
probably still at 100% on it, I would assume.
Right, right. And again, without those microphone issues. So now I'm at a point to where I can hand this down, which no one wants it, um, or resell it and get some pretty good value out of it. You know, it may not be the best with the Ultra 2 sitting between this one and the Ultra 3. But I'm probably gonna be going with Ultra 3 unless there's just something that just rubs me the wrong way, right? The Ultra 2, I remember being so upset about that was even released. I still to this day don't even think the Ultra 2 should have been a model, right? We should be talking about the Ultra 2 now with all of those new features instead of, a year later just giving us a tap or not a tap. What was the pinch? What do they call that? The double
Yeah.
pinch feature,
Yep. Double tap.
and a double tap and a brighter screen. I think that was a cash grab. That really rubbed me the wrong way with that device.
I mean, it does have Siri on device, so some of the stuff is on device rather than having to have an
Yeah,
internet connection. So that would be useful. But yeah,
yeah.
no, I'm with you. So let me ask you this. Let's have this part of the conversation.
Hmm.
If they have not settled that lawsuit or have not found a way to be able to turn on the heart rate sensor on the Ultra 3, does that factor in to your um, decision at all?
It doesn't because we know whatever the issue is behind the scenes with their litigation and stuff. It's a software update. So even if they have to hold it for WWDC next year and say, hey, and WatchOS version point whatever, they can just enable it, right? I don't think that that's going to require new hardware to do, or maybe it does. I don't think
Well,
so,
I don't
right?
know. I mean,
If
depends
they
on
pay,
if their workaround is software related or if they're
right,
having to completely do a new sensor because I mean they lost the lawsuit. There's the reality, right?
right,
They're still trying to come up with a workaround that customs will accept, right? So that
right.
it could be enabled. So,
Yeah,
okay.
I don't think that's not gonna be a factor to me because with whatever they're doing behind the scenes, they'll add it to the Ultra 3, and whenever that's worked out, whether they pay them or break down and decide to pay them whatever they want for those patents or whatever the case is, I'm assuming that on my end it'll be seamless to
Okay.
get those features. So
Okay.
that won't be a big deal. But yeah, so as of now, I'm thinking Ultra 3. But I remember too, I believe it was this Ultra that was one of the big hassles being on the cruise ship and trying to coordinate with my brother-in-law or my sister-in-law to make sure someone's here because I didn't want it sitting on the porch and uh, uh, yeah, that was a hassle. Never a good idea to get such expensive devices sitting on the porch with your regular Amazon
I'm not sure.
supplies and stuff.
I think the phone not a good idea.
Right,
The phone either you'll get it on day one or you're going to be a month out, kind of thing, right? At
right.
least a month out. I don't think that'll be the case with the Ultra 3. I just
Yeah,
don't see it's third gen, no major revamp, nothing like that, unless there's something fancy that comes out on it. I don't see you having to wait months and months and months if you ordered it when you came
when I got
back.
back. Right,
Yeah.
right. And yeah, the same. So and it's the same with the AirPods, right? I for whatever reason never had the issues that that you and my wife had. These are I keep saying the original pair. They're not the original pair. I remember getting them replaced because of a charging issue. But still that replacement was still a couple of years ago and they've been fine. The only issue that I've noticed is um the transparency mode doesn't work with one of them, right? I'll turn on the noise cancellation, and I can still hear a bit of noise coming through on the right one. But this one's totally like with the noise cancellation mode. That's the only issue, and it's not a huge deal breaker for me. So I'll still will hold on to my current AirPod Pros, but yeah, I can see me going for the regular AirPods if if they're comfortable, right? If that form factor looks like something I can deal with, because that having it rest on my earlobe like that and not going into with the bud, um, when I'm active, it just doesn't sit there, right? If I turn my head or something like that, just the way my ear is shaped, they just
Yeah.
pop right out. So
So
um,
that might require an in-store visit for you to
yeah,
test a pair before you would purchase
yeah,
that. So, and I mean, AirPods sell like hotcakes, but they make them like hotcakes too. So, I
right,
mean, even if, and they're actually easier to walk in randomly and get a pair out of a store. So I
right,
don't think, okay.
right.
All right.
Yeah,
So
and other than that,
phone,
we don't know if there's, like we said, we don't know if there's going to be even iPads this year, although it's probably likely. The mini I'm not interested in, and I'm not in the market for a MacBook Air, even though that new model coming out is probably going to be
pretty sweet.
with the new chip in it. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
it's going to be pretty cool.
All right. So for you, most likely an Ultra 3, but probably post cruise.
Right.
Potentially AirPods post cruise, and then potentially Pro Max 16 Pro Max, but probably spring on the
Yeah.
16 Pro Max. Then what we'll pay attention to on this show is how long Jason delays getting the 16 Pro Max, and see if he hits that. Well, now I just have to wait for the 17 anyway. So
Right. Right.
yeah, yeah. All right, so I'm going to go in reverse from what I put him in here. Vision Pro, I'm definitely holding off on now. I'm not going to do that. I've been really, really thinking about that. I'm going in Friday for an eye appointment. I'm going to get my prescription, and I'm going to do the research to make sure I could get the eye inserts
Hmm.
exactly to my prescription. If the answer to that is yes, cool. But I'm going to wait and see how that fleshes out a little bit. It's just a lot of money to spend. And I think right now I'd rather spend the money on an iPhone 16 this year and still have money for an iPhone 17 next year if it's really going to be that big of a redesign next year with extra stuff. So I'd rather spend the money that way and wait for a cheaper Vision Pro. So going to hold off on that.
Right.
Here's the surprise one. I think this is going to surprise folks that know how much I love my iPad mini. If it is really just a processor bump, which is the rumor, then I don't know. I mean, I may look at it if they get a better screen or something like that, that'll be more tempting. But since I got the iPad Pro, the big one, right?
Right.
The only thing I really use my iPad mini for is to read books,
Hmm.
regular books, not even doing my study on it anymore. I read books. I use it for hymns during sacrament meeting because I don't want to pull out the big giant
Right.
iPad in the middle of that meeting. Um, and it's that's the closest device, so I'll hurry and grab it and do something that needs to be
Right.
done, right? So it's just not, I mean, I'm not even charging it every night anymore like I used to. I used to need to charge it every night, but now I'm grabbing it in the evening and thinking, "Oh, it's at 87%. That's more than
Yeah.
sufficient charge." So it's just that's just where I'm
Yeah.
at right now. So, especially
So
where this is not a cheap iPad, right? I mean, this one,
right.
for the one I want, it'll be the mid tier because I want to have plenty of storage if I'm going to get it. But I guess I could potentially go with the underlying one, but it's like a $600 iPad,
Right.
right? I mean, it's not a 349, even though it's the smallest one, because they're packing all that tech into there,
Yeah.
and it's still got Touch ID, which is fine in the button, but that's Face ID is still way better. So yeah, I don't know, Jay. I don't
Yeah.
know that it's a
This one would kind
need.
of be like a baby pro, right? As far as
Yeah,
pricing goes. So it's not your cheap. Yeah, I could see you justifying it more if it was 329 or something like that. But
yeah.
the Pro, the Mini, since they've been putting the better screen technology and the other features in it, it kind of puts it in that Air range, right?
If they will do that, if it truly is just a smaller version of my Pro,
Right.
all in, right? If they
Yep.
really do that, right, which means the the OLED or even tandem OLED, right? They're not going to do this. They're just not going to do that with this. I mean, and Gurman's
Yeah.
saying it's just basically going to be the exact same thing with a processor spec bump. That's why I'm saying I don't think I can justify it. If they were to say, "Hey, we're going to raise the price to $700," but it literally is the same caliber as the iPad Pro, it's just the smallest of the iPad Pros,
Right.
there's a value there, right? And I
Yeah.
would probably do it just for the quality there. But if all I'm going to get is the same iPad I have right now with a spec bump, I
Hmm.
just don't. I don't have any problems. And what am I on? Like my third iPad Mini or something like that? Because we know
Right.
it
They're
it
not
seems to.
waterproof.
Yeah, they're not waterproof. Absolutely not waterproof, right? So, but I'm not having battery issues with it. It's
Okay.
stable. It just so yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
So that might be a
L-
surprise, but it's not a slam dunk.
Let me ask you this, because I find this in the situation I am now, because the only time I look at this monitor that I have my show notes and stuff up on is when we're recording the podcast. So, is this a case where you're on your MacBook, you're doing whatever you need to do on your MacBook, and it has that beautiful screen, and you close the MacBook and you grab your phone, and it has that beautiful screen, and you're looking at that, and then in between that, you're looking at your iPad Pro, and it has that tandem OLED display and stuff. And then when you go to look at your Mini, do you find yourself looking like, what am I looking at? Like, is it so far behind in technology, display, and um, processing power and stuff like that? Even though you only use it to read, but do you find it the weaker of all of your devices
Yes.
now? Is that the reason why?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I could now we're just talking about this, but this is why shows never last only an hour with us. But
Right.
if literally all I'm going to do is read on this device,
Hmm.
right? Put aside the sacrament meeting for the hymns because there's ways around that. The hymn books are sitting right there in the pew,
Right.
right? So I could do that, or I could use my phone for that, right? But I could go get a Kindle
Right.
because if I think, let me check, but
Well, the
there's
screen is still better than the Kindle, the display,
yeah,
I would
but
imagine.
e-ink just to read. If I'm just gonna read,
Yeah.
right? E-ink is better, right? And because
Yeah.
it's a little more like a real book and all that kind of stuff. And so I'm just gonna look right now. Deseret bookshelf Kindle. Oh nope. So that did it. I can't. So I was thinking maybe I could get a Kindle, but about half of my reading is done in it's a Deseret Book, which is a publisher here, and their bookshelf app does not work on Kindle, so never mind. And I have a
Okay.
subscription for them. I actually pay for a monthly subscription where I can get a whole bunch of books. So
Okay.
never mind. We won't go down that thread. I was thinking maybe I could just go with the Kindle. So no, I'm just literally on this, but I'm almost to the point where what I want to do is wipe this mini
Hmm.
and set it up from scratch and only put things on as I know I need them.
Right.
Take off all of the email, all that kind of stuff off of it and see what happens. And so, yeah, that's where I'm at with the mini. So,
Okay. All right. That's what I was wondering. Was it just because it's the weaker of all of your
yeah,
devices, right? Because you pretty much upgraded to current gen on all of your devices,
yeah, I
and
am.
and that except for the mini, and it just seems like the weaker of all of your devices.
Well, it
So,
is current gen for the mini, but it hasn't been updated for what, 3 years or something
yeah,
like that.
yeah,
So yeah, but if I'm talking about function, right, for what I use it for, that's probably what I need to do is take everything off of it and see what actually I put back on it.
right.
So
Also, too, remember adjusting to your new, your new living situation.
yeah,
When you're in the house, it made sense to grab the closest device to you, but now everything is literally 10 feet away from you most
yeah,
of the time. So, yeah,
yep. Okay, all right. Let's talk watch. So
yeah,
I, I think the heart rate sensor. I know a lot of people don't do it, but I think I use the heart rate sensor. I like to kind of know where
hmm
my heart rate is. I like to know if I'm in. I do a lot of fitness stuff, and so I'm gonna might have to do some research because I'm assuming that the heart rate sensor doesn't work when you're doing workouts either, right? So, um, and I like to know if on my bike rides, especially where I'm cheating and have an e-bike now, right? I like to
right,
know if I'm getting my heart rate into a good cardio zone.
right,
So I think that might factor in a little bit, but I don't think it'll be the biggest factor because I just looked. My Ultra's at 88% battery capacity,
hmm
but it's noticeable, right?
really
I
at
mean,
88%.
yeah, it's definitely noticeable. I mean, when we first got these Ultras, right, we were like, man, I can work out and I don't have to charge it for like 2 days, even with workouts on both days and all that kind of stuff. Well, I'm back to what I used to do with the regular series watch, which is
Right,
every time I go to shower, I'm throwing it on the charger. Or
right,
I've actually not put it on at night a couple of times this week because I realize that it's at 30% before I go to bed, so I want to charge it, and by the time it's fully charged, I'm out cold. Right? I think this morning I put it on at like 2 a.m. or whatever it was when I woke up and remembered that I didn't have it on or something like that. So, um, and I want um, the new Vitals, and that's the Vitals feature, right, which comes with the new version of WatchOS, but that's only going
right.
to read stuff during the night. And so that battery is the biggest thing. So my main watch is going to get replaced, unless I realize that heart rate stuff is just a bigger problem than what I
Yeah.
would like it to be. So, um, the Series 10 versus the Ultra, I think, is going to come down to battery life. I'm not. I like the rugged look of this, but I don't like the orange. I mean, just
You never did. You never
nope.
did.
And a space black version would be crazy
Right.
cool, right? So yeah, but my guess is I'm going to end up with Ultra, partially because I'm sure they'll have something about the Ultra um, that makes it better
Right. It has to
than the
be ultra.
Series 10, right?
It
Yeah,
has
yeah.
to earn its name.
Yep, yep. But the other thing, and I'm just gonna while I'm talking here, I'm gonna look this up. But the other challenge that I have is swimming.
Yeah.
So I'm really struggling. I can't get my podcast stuff to sync up well on the second Apple Watch. And
Right.
I've tried making it or connecting it to my phone. You know how you can switch them in the phone and all that kind of stuff. And but it's just doing some weird things, and I may just need to remove Overcast and put it back on, and then let stuff sync back up because I'd really like to be listening to podcasts on that thing.
Yeah.
But so that's one struggle that I'm having. The second struggle that I'm having is the battery life is unpredictable.
Really.
So yeah, so like each workout doesn't drain the same amount, even though I'm going for the same distance, about the same length, and
hmm
doing the same things with it, right? It's connected by Bluetooth to that little clip, and I'm playing audio of some sort, right? And so it's not like one time it'll just drop 28%, but then the next time it'll drop 60%. And
But you're
so
still
it's,
getting through the whole workout, though, right?
yeah, but then I have first world problem. Then I have to come home, remember to throw it on the charger, all of that kind of
Right.
stuff. And it's just one of those things where, um, anyway, so
Right. I
it's
can
not
see that
great.
being a problem if you don't charge it, right? Because if
Yeah.
you're getting through the whole workout when
Yeah.
starting at 100%, but yeah, I'm with you. If you start the next day at 60%, then I can
Yeah.
see where that could be a problem.
So that's challenge number 2. And then challenge number 3, although it's gotten to be less because my wife, we're getting into the new routine with the grandkids. They're in school. My daughter's getting onto her regular schedule, which means my wife's not going swimming nearly as much as she was. She's either walking or doing something else because the timing doesn't match up for us to go. So I go swimming, but she's not. And so,
Right.
the question still is, I had mentioned that she was thinking maybe she wanted to have the ability to listen to stuff while she swam and exercised in the pool. So those are
Right.
kind of the things that are factoring into what I plan on doing this fall. Now, I'm not going to buy 2 brand new watches or 2 latest gen watches, right? I'll grab if I need to, I'll grab an SE or a Series 9 for her.
Right.
Or I'll just grab one of those and she can take back the one that I'm using because she's not going to swim nearly as much, right? And so it won't be
Right.
as big of a deal. And she doesn't do the podcast like that. So she uses the podcast app, which I'm guessing might work a little better because
Yeah, it should. Yeah.
Overcast is great. Overcast is my podcast of choice, but it's not an Apple native app, which means he's having to work around, some of the APIs and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
So I think definitely one watch. One of the new ones is in the mix. Probably Ultra 3. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's kind of where I'm at.
Okay. So I didn't think about that when I was mentioning it earlier, but yeah, a new color, a space black, a space gray, something like that would really tip the scales into more towards definitely purchasing it. I think it's a definite maybe for me, but yeah, new color would. And I'm not saying all of the wild colors, right? I'm never going to do like that brush gold or that aluminum looking gold again.
Oh, you know what,
Starlight.
Jason? We're totally wrong.
What do you mean?
You know what? I screwed up. So here's real time. It is not the heart rate sensor that the patent fight was about. It's the blood
Yeah.
oxygen sensor.
No, you have it here. It says blood oxygen sensor.
But I've been
The heart
talking
rate,
heart rate. I've been talking heart rate this whole time.
really?
So
No, the heart rate
yeah,
monitor has always been.
yeah, no. Okay, guys. So sorry. This is real time. Greg screwing up and going back and fixing his own mistakes. I've been saying the heart rate monitor and so here, let me backtrack this a little bit. When I talked about not being able to see the heart rate during a workout, that's not an issue. So this is not a problem. What I
Right.
wouldn't be able to do is measure my blood oxygen on a
Right.
regular basis. Okay.
So you did say that. I knew what you meant because
Yeah.
you can't check the workout app does track your heart rate and stuff, and it keeps it in that range, or it lets you know if you're going in and out of that range. But yeah, the blood oxygen sensor. You're right. I guess I should have assumed that we don't know what everyone assumes if you're right or not. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I knew what Greg meant. So yeah, you're
Yeah.
right. The
All
blood
right. So
oxygen sensor. That's the one that they're dealing with the patents and stuff for.
yep. All right. So that's my bad. All right. So now I have to go back and say, okay, yeah. I mean, if it's just the blood oxygen sensor, I'm with Jason. They will figure it out, right?
Yeah.
They will work through this patent. It's been a while, but they'll find a way to get around it, and I will do without that. The heart rate, I don't know why I had it fixed in my head that it was a heart rate sensor, which makes sense because I was going, why am I struggling with this so much when I know I shouldn't be struggling? This should be a slam dunk upgrade for me to get the battery life that I want out of this, and it will. And there is a scenario where I don't trade in my current Ultra, right? Where my current Ultra, because trade-in values on watches are just not
Yeah. It won't be worth it. It's almost better to
No.
hand it down, to someone else instead of
So
trading it in.
what I could do is put this Ultra as my swim watch, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then if I need the blood oxygen sensor, then I have it, right? I can
Right.
always throw it on a band and throw it on my wrist. I'm going to look right now and see what the trade-in value is on it. So, sorry, folks. I really apologize. It's not that. I really, really goofed up on that.
So the swim case, while you're looking that up, the swim case for your watch now that you use for the older series, will that fit the Ultra?
Yeah.
Because it is quite a bit taller.
Yeah, it's an ingenious. It's kind of a rubber. It's got a ridge on the bottom that fits just like a watch band connector, so it's the exact same
Mm-hmm.
size. So it settles on that, and then it's like rubber bandy tension kind of things that hold the bar above it, and then you just push the bar up and then let it slide down and lock in. So that's how it locks in.
Okay.
So yeah, it should fit it just fine and dandy. So I'm looking right now. Yes, it's all true. Yes, it's free. Yes. Yes. $355.
Okay.
So, mediocre, right?
Yeah.
So let me check the other one. All the buttons work, responds to touch. Yes, it's free of functional damage. Yes, free of scratches. Yes, the bands work. So the other one's worth $125. So you're talking about $200 difference between the two, right? If I want to
You
keep
looked at
one.
the Ultra first, right? That
Yeah.
was the Ultra.
Yeah.
Okay. That
And
was
then
more than I was expecting.
yeah. So we'll see. So yeah. So apologies, folks. Blood oxygen sensor, not heart rate monitor. Goofed up on that, but yeah. So I'll
Yeah.
be switching to an Ultra, even if I lose the blood oxygen sensor. So
Yeah. 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 I don't think it'll be a huge deal. I think even if you do the Ultra 3 and keep your current Ultra for swimming stuff, that'll probably be the path of least resistance. I think that'll
yeah.
still be a good route to go. It'll keep you from having to buy an
Actually, it
extra
does.
device,
Yeah. I
right?
wouldn't have to buy Karen one either, right? She
Right.
could just take
Because you
this
can,
other one. She won't use it as much.
right.
So does that change now that we know how much the trade-in value? Does $355 of trade-in value make you more likely to
Yeah, that
go to
makes
an
me
Ultra
more,
3?
because like I said, that was more than I was expecting. I really thought it was maybe in the less than $200 range. So in it, of course, if that holds, right? Because we're still
Yeah.
talking a month away, they can drop it by $50 or something like that around the release. That was the whole situation we ran into when me traded in my iPad so earlier in the year. But no, if that holds, that's only a bonus for me.
Yep. All right. All right, so that's it. So watch, some AirPods, and a phone for Jay, plus a phone for his wife. For me, I have no idea who in my family is going to end up with phones, including myself, but
Right.
definitely a watch for me, and probably no iPad mini. At least that's the plan as of right now. So there you are. You heard it as of August 20th when we recorded this, or August 20 plus when you listened. And by the time the next episode comes out, it'll all have changed. So there you go.
Right. We'll have a lot more rumors, a lot more part leaks, and yeah, a clear picture.
Yep.
A clear picture every week until we get to a release date.
Yep. All right, Jay, anything else that you want to cover here?
No, that was all. We're looking forward to next week. I think I'm leaning towards. We'll see. We'll see. We kind of keep it light here lately. We just kind of go with the flow. Um, we'll see what the news holds for us this week, but I'm kind of leaning towards device alternatives. Right? We talk about uh, we're heavily focused towards Apple and the Apple ecosystem and iOS and things like that. I'm thinking about talking about some alternatives to be able to get stuff done outside of the Apple ecosystem.
All
So
right.
we'll see.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks again for joining us. Appreciate it. No bonus episode or no post show this week. We still managed to run, but we did get it under an hour and 45 minutes this time. So,
Okay.
all
Yep.
right. So we ran a little shorter, but not quite as short as I was hoping we would. But thanks for joining us, and we'll talk to you next week.
All right, guys. See you then.